Welcome. This video is going to show you how to complete the research report draft for the research category of our summer English course. You're going to go to Google Classroom to start off, and the first thing you'll want to do is scroll down to weekly assignments week 3, click on research lesson 4, and open up your research lesson 4 organizer. Then you're going to go back to Google Classroom, scroll back up to daily assignments, week 4, open up research lesson 5, and open up your research lesson 5 Google Doc. I'm actually going to just quickly review how to do research lesson 5. And then the last thing we want is the research report draft week 4 assignment and weekly assignments week 4. Click on that, open up both the prompt and the draft for feedback. I'm actually going to make copies of these to use as models. And I'll attach these to the Google Classroom assignment when I'm done with this video. Okay, so these are models of the docs that you have access to. Now, one more thing for the research report prompt, I'm going to scroll down to the research report organizer. Okay, so I've got research lesson 4, I've got my organizer. I've got research lesson 5, I've got my research report organizer, I've got my draft for feedback. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we look at research lesson 5. Research lesson 5 should, if you're opening it up and you haven't done it yet, it won't include an answer to the question. It won't include, your research question. It won't include your revised answer. It won't include your examples. So where do I go to get that? I go back to research lesson 4. So my research question, there it is. How can high school teachers in California provide equal access in education for undocumented students? So I pasted it right there. You can do the same thing for your research lesson 5. Revised answer. This is your answer to the research question, the A in the ACE paragraph, or the claim in the CER. Well, if I scroll down here, we can see that this is what I wrote as my tentative answer. Tentative meaning like first draft. If we come back here, though, you can see that I actually kind of changed it. I kept the first paragraph. I actually originally copied and pasted, and then I kept the first paragraph. The first sentence. But then I slightly revised my second sentence because instead of just considering our position in the discussion as teachers, we should center undocumented students. That's a little bit more specific. And I quoted one of my sources as saying that students are experts on their stories. Okay, and then now 2 pieces of evidence to support my claim. Now, again, I'm going to get this from research lesson 4. So the Illinois Association for College Admission Counseling, that's one of my sources right here, and Immigrants Rising, my other source, both recommend using posters and other materials to create a physical classroom environment that identifies educators as allies. That's basically from my notes. If I need to, right, if I need more information, I can always open up my source and read it again, right? Like create space for students. No, I'm sorry, it's not. This isn't the right part. Create a safe space. So do all you can to identify yourself as a supporter. Use posters, bookmarks, stickers. So I actually might go back and change this and say, it's posters and other materials, right? So I think that's okay. Posters and other materials. You know what? I could actually change this though. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use suggesting so you can see my change. Such materials as posters, bookmarks and stickers. That's a little bit more specific. Okay, and then my second piece of evidence was from this resource. It's Immigrants Rising, but it's a different it's a different different website, a different resource. It's a webinar that they created, and basically in the webinar they say that you have to like think beyond the physical space. Physical space is important. Put up posters, but also as a teacher, to be an ally, think about your own role and how you approach the discussion with undocumented students. So that's where I got this idea here. And in this webinar, it's a little hard to see, but I took a screenshot. People are the experts and authors of their stories. Let me see if I can make this just a tad bigger. No, I can't. So in my model, it says, this is the screenshot from this webinar. People are the experts and authors of their stories. How are you positioning yourself when working with the community? So for me, that's telling me that we should reflect on how we can center undocumented students. All right, so that's my evidence. So now basically, I got my research question. I need you to include your research question in your draft because I don't know your research question unless you tell me. Usually there's a prompt that everybody's responding to that the teacher has given you, but in this case, you're creating the prompt to a large extent. So I need your question. And then I've got my claim. This is my answer or my claim. My answer in the ACE, claim in the CER. And then I've got evidence. I'm citing evidence or I'm giving evidence, however you want to put it in the acronym, or in CER, this is just the E for evidence examples. All right, so now I'm done with research lesson 5. I've been saying in class that this is like almost half or even more than half of your paper. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the draft and we're going to paste the research question. And I would do it just like this. Research question, how can high school teachers like even include the bolded heading for research question? All right. Now I'm going to go here and I'm going to copy my answer. If you want, you can center the research question, but if you do that, just make sure you don't center your rest of your text because it's hard to read. Look at the difference between this and this. It's just easier to read like this because the way our eyes move. Okay, so this is my answer, and I'm not gonna make a new paragraph. Actually, I'm not, because I've been telling you this is an ACE paragraph, and I don't want anyone to look at this model and think that they have to write multiple paragraphs. So later on, I'll show you what it would look like as multiple paragraphs. All right, so now I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna grab this, and I'm gonna plug it in right here. And I'm gonna add a for example. Okay. So I've got A in ACE, C in ACE. I've left off my period there. Now I need to explain. I need to explain the, and I'm actually going to add a sentence here. I'm going to add to create a safe physical space. Okay, and now I'm going to go back here. And these sentence starters here for the last part, how does the evidence support your claim? Again, this is kind of like a C mean matter, right? So you're using direct quotation or paraphrase here. I used paraphrase. What does the evidence mean? I don't know if I need to explain what this means. Like, it's pretty straightforward, like put posters up. But if it helps, you can explain what the evidence means, especially if you're quoting it, you want to explain what it means. But here, these sentence frames are going to be helpful to me. So, and remember, if it helps you to fill out this organizer, fill it out. So like, I'm just going to show you what it might look like if you fill the whole thing out. But if you just use the sentence starters, that's okay too. You don't need to turn in the organizer. I'm not going to be collecting it or scoring it. I'm only going to score what's in your draft. Okay, so now this might be, this is my paraphrase. And I don't feel like I need to explain what that means, so I'm going to go straight to over here. All right, so I'm going to go with this illustrates the claim that, I'm just going to say this illustrates the claim. You, in that blank space, you could also, put like a quote, or you could be more specific, like say, the importance of using physical space illustrates the physical space illustrates the claim that teachers can quickly, or no, not quickly, the teachers can, you know what, I'm going to go back to my and I'm going to go change to this example reveals that. I think that's going to fit better. So this example reveals that teachers can show undocumented students right away as they enter the room on the first day that the teacher is an ally. I think that's helpful. Later on, I'm going to go back and fix my font to make sure it's consistent. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to go back to research lesson 5, and I'm going to grab my draft. So I think you kind of get the idea of how to use the organizer. So I'm not going to use the organizer again, except just for the sentence frames. Reflecting is also important. Immigrants Rising points out that educators need to reflect on, let's see here, our rules. So actually, I'm going to change this to say that we can show undocumented students right away as they enter the room on the first day that we are allies. All right, so Immigrants Rising points out that educators need to reflect on our roles in the discussion. I'm going to change this to community. Since people are the experts and authors of their stories, that's an actual quote, so I put it in quotes, it's important for educators to center students and not ourselves. All right, so I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go with as a result, we can see that teachers need to be thoughtful about their interactions with students in order to promote inclusion and safety. Something like that. Okay, now I'm going to highlight. And I'm going to fix the font. I'm going to change the font size to 12. I'm going to make sure it's Arial all throughout. Okay, cool. Now there's one more thing we need to do with this draft is to cite our sources. So if you know how to do MLA, if you've done lessons on MLA, this is great to practice MLA with. I would encourage you to do that, especially if you have time next week and you finish everything and you have time to practice MLA. But as a minimum for this, I want you to link to your sources. So one way to do that, we're gonna have to go back to lesson 4. And by the way, it's okay if you don't end up using all your sources. I ended up not using this Dream Center resource in my report. But here, let me see here. So here is the Immigrants Rising PDF. So now I'm going to go here and I'm going to copy the link. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to my draft, and where it says Immigrants Rising, I'm going to highlight that. See this little, it's like a chain. I'm going to click Insert Link, and I'm going to click Apply. Now, I could do it like this, right? Like I could put this in the middle of my, but that's really kind of funky looking. It's not very pleasing to the eye. So instead, again, I'll show you again how I did that with the next source. Okay, so I've got the Illinois Association for College and Counseling. Again, I click on the link, and what happens if I don't double click, if I just single click, it brings this up. I click right here to copy the link. It's going to go on my clipboard now. Now I go back to my draft and I highlight the source. I go back up here to Insert Link, and I click Paste. And there we go. Now this was a different source. Remember, it was a webinar. It was down here at the bottom. So I need a new citation for this. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to copy the link. I'm going to go back to my draft, and even though it's still Immigrants Rising, it's a different source, and there we go. So now if I want to find out more about where Mr. Weller got this info, I can click here and open up the webinar. If I want to read more about what the Illinois Association for College Admission Counseling says, I can click here and read it. Same thing with Immigrants Rising. And that's the purpose of citations. When you do MLA citation, it's a more complicated form, but the purpose is so that you're giving credit. So one, I'm not saying that this is my idea. I got this idea from these folks and from these folks. So that's one, it's giving credit. The other is it's telling your reader where they can find the info if they want to read more, for example. So here, a link does it, an MLA format, a citation in a works cited does it. So that's the purpose of citation. If you don't have time to do MLA format, but you understand that the purpose of citation is to give credit and to give your readers a reference in case they want more information. That's the purpose. And you can do that through links for our work. All right, that's it. If you have done this, you have completed your research report draft. And I will see you soon.